The purpose of this video is to help you write a solid outline for the final term paper. I will start with some general guidelines for the outline and work towards somewhat of an example. And I say somewhat of an example because I found that if I show too specific, like an actual student work, then a lot of students tend to think that that's the one and only way that the paper can be done. So we'll keep it generic so that you can put your creativity into the paper. You may want to go back and review the videos that were assigned a couple modules back that dealt with the final term paper itself. And in fact, right now I'll just show you where those are, show you a couple other turn-in things related to this final term paper and its outline. Now keep in mind, when you go and look in Canvas, you may be seeing something quite a bit different. The modules I'm showing in Canvas are for the accelerated 8-week version of the course. So if you are in the typical 16-week course, the numbers will be different, but obviously you'll be following along and you will know that, okay, it's time to start thinking about the final term paper. So it was first shown, as I said, a couple modules ago, and when you clicked on that particular module and then clicked on the details for the term paper inside of it, there were 2 videos on that. Those were the 2 videos that you watched to complete the quiz. And then shortly after that, you would have completed your final term paper thesis, draft 1. And now we're at the time where it's time to turn in the term paper outline. And inside of the module for the term paper outline, there will be the videos that you are watching probably right now. And then inside this video, I will show you this link. When you click on this link, it takes you to this page. The website happens to be a high school website, but it has a great example for laying out outlines in here. So it's a great review. If it's been a while since you've written a term paper, if you've never really had to write an important term paper, this is a nice crash course on how to do so, starting with the outline. What I've done to make things convenient for you is I've taken a lot of this content here and rearranged it a little bit in what I'm about to show you so that it's more specific for our class. So here's the visual that I'm going to use for this video. Note, even though it says template here, this is not a template as in you can take this and just plug in your graphic designers and you're going to have your outline finished. In fact, because I don't even want you to go anywhere near that, I do not give out physical copies of this file. This is just for visual purposes only. So again, this template is modified from this website over here that we just looked at. One thing you'll know if you notice if you read through this website is that they cite the sources. You do not have to cite your sources at the time you turn in the outline. However, the purpose of this outline is to allow your instructor to see if you are on the right track towards a good paper. Thus, doing a good amount of research before writing the outline is highly, highly encouraged. But as of the date of the outline being due, you are not required to have 100% of your research completed. So thus it is possible and acceptable that your final paper varies just a bit from your outline. An example might be that by the time you finish your research, you want to use 2 different sets of images to make your points, or you want to change your points slightly. That's completely acceptable. And after we look at this, I'll show you, I'm doing air quotes, an example of an outline. But again, the idea is that you don't take that outline and just substitute your designers into it. It's just to help you get started. Okay, so the outline template. You start with your introduction, lead us into what you'll be discussing, and then state your thesis. So you want to get your reader's attention by asking a leading question or relaying something enticing to get them hooked, like to want to read your paper. Then you state your thesis of the paper. Now we're going to do something a little bit different for ours, and you'll see when I show you the example. We're going to state the thesis that we turned in a week or so ago, And then we are also going to write a brand new thesis that's probably a little bit more refined because of your research. And I'm not going to read everything here verbatim, so you may want to pause this occasionally and read, and or go to the website and read. You want to stay very logical when you are writing a paper for a college class. Keep the perimeters of this particular paper in mind. Look often at the requirements listed in Canvas. Your thesis, in your own words, is going to be a more elaborate version or variation of, although designer A is from a certain movement and my other designer is from a different movement, they share the following. That's your goal, is to get something that when you boil it down to its essence, that's what you're telling the reader they are about to read. Okay, and that's going to be the most challenging. That's why we started on this a while back. But once you have that, the rest of the paper, so to speak, writes itself. Okay, so then you're going to have your body paragraphs, the subtopics that support your thesis. Remember, only one topic is discussed within a single paragraph. So within those paragraphs, you state a main point, and then you give the evidence that helps you to make that point to your reader, and you go on with another paragraph with another explanation and a third if applicable. And then we get to the conclusion. Now you want to spend a great deal of time on this, almost as much as you did the thesis, because this is where you get to make the last point and really sell to the reader that you told them what you set out to tell them in your introductory paragraph. I'll show you some key things on this website in just a second here to help you with your conclusion. One thing you really want to avoid is this strange thing that we professors have been discussing amongst ourselves, is sometimes we'll read a great paper from a student and then they will make a conclusion that says, so in conclusion, designer A and designer B both made a lasting impact on graphic design. Now think about that. That's not what your paper was about, the fact that they made a lasting impact on graphic design, right? So that defies logic. So let's look at what this website has to say. And I'll just kind of slowly get to it here to show you some of the stuff that's here, but to hopefully entice you to go in and check this out. They give you a list of techniques that you should probably try as you're putting together your thesis. Some of the key points is you want to synthesize, don't summarize. Include a brief summary of the paper's main points, but don't just simply repeat these. You need to come up with another way that makes everything round out and feel very complete. And equally important, they give things to avoid. So avoid the things that are way too overused. Don't bring up new material in your conclusion. Put things in your conclusion that really belonged in the body of your paper. And make sure you don't turn your paper in on this website, right? There's a turn it in link here. This is a high school, right? This is just so you can see some great suggestions on outlines. All right, let's look at the sample outline. Now, one thing I want to say is I use some phrasing in here that's not the best, right? The idea is to show you items that you can improve on. So it would be pretty unprofessional to start a paper with wording this casual, like how could it be? So in other words, what I'm saying is you want to come up with a better, more scholastic way of saying something like this. How could it be that Jane Doe, a graphic designer from the movement known as blah, 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 and Willie Jackson from the totally different design movement have created work with such commonalities? So that could be your introduction, getting people interested. But some of this could possibly be part of your thesis. So this is going to vary for everyone. The key thing, though, is that you bring us in kind of gently. You make sure before that paragraph is over that you clearly state your thesis, right? So that's why we do it in an outline form, is we just outline the things, like saying, okay, this is roughly what I'm going to say for the introduction, and this is pretty much exactly what I'm going to say for our thesis. Now, what we're doing here for the second and third points in here is we are first showing our original draft 1 thesis, and then we're going to show draft 2. Is it possible that these could be identical? Probably only if you received maximum points on your thesis. But even then, most people find that when they start doing a bit of research, that their thesis does evolve. So a somewhat nonsense example of a thesis would be Jane Doe and Willie Jackson are associated with 2 clearly different design movements, yet similarities exist, such as their use of color, strict adherence to elephant-shaped grids, as shown in many of their works. Something like that. Now, how much crossover there is between what's here and what's here, when you actually write the paper is fine. But for this class, for our purposes, I want you to actually put what design movement they're in your thesis in the outline. Then if you want to divide this stuff up a little bit in the first paragraph, that's fine, as long as there's a clearly written thesis there. Now, will you need a D and an E and an F in there? I don't know. It depends on how you write. Then we move on to the body, and typically each one of these major points represents a paragraph. So you're going to start with just a brief background, as I mentioned in the other videos. Then you're going to get into a point, and you're going to say design from the such and such movement has the following characteristics, or you're going to say something like that, of course. The blank, blank, blank design movement is known for blank, blank, blank. So basically here you're expanding on your thesis. Might take a couple of paragraphs to do so, and then you get to your evaluation of the image set. So you might say something like, image 1 is an example of blank work produced by Jane Doe for the blank blank corporation. The work demonstrates Jane's use of da da da. You may see the use of blah 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 in Willie's poster for something something that happened in 2017, which is image number 2. So now you're starting to prove your thesis to us visually. And then you can move on to another paragraph where you show us yet another image of Jane Doe, and then you show us another image by Willie Jackson, and you say, aha, see, even though they're from different design movements, look at these similarities, right? That's what this paper is about. Then we get to the conclusion, and then you want to say something like, you know, our first designer, a graphic designer with blah, 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 and then Jane Doe who da, 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 da. And then, again, be sure and read some suggestions on this website for how to properly do a conclusion. Things that your instructor will be looking for in grading your outline is that it's obvious that you actually read through here and took some advice from this website to make for a very good outline. Obviously, your instructor will be looking for the fact that your outline remains very logical and that your conclusion stays very logical with the body of your paper and the thesis / introduction of your paper. Your outline should definitely look like a logically structured, indented outline. Whether you use number 1 and A and B, or you use Roman numerals, make sure that you use indenting, because that's what makes the outline simple to read and really helps you organize your thoughts. So you would say, okay, introduction is going to be made up of these 4 things. My body is going to be made up of these 4 or 5 paragraphs, and then in a paragraph where I need to break it down what I'm saying, then you go another indent further. One last point from the website under outlining, how to create your outline. So we've talked about most of this stuff, but when you're having trouble writing the actual paper, brainstorming is your best friend. Just start writing and writing and writing. If you're a faster typer, type it. Otherwise, just do it by hand. Don't judge yourself. And then when you've written like 5 pages, that's when you go back and look and see, do I have some good material here to write about? And then ask yourself how you can organize it and make it great.